Celine Dion's son was expected to do what she did. People thought he would sing. People thought he would stay in the music business. But René Charles had other things in mind. Finally, at the age of 24, he told the truth about what he had been doing behind closed doors. For years, the family kept it a secret. His mom was scared. His father, who died, would have been shocked. But René Charles didn't care about their anxieties anymore. What he said this year explains why he's been so secretive and why Celine has been so careful to keep his privacy. Celine Dion was born on March 30, 1968, in Charlemagne, a tiny village outside Montreal. She was the youngest of 14 kids. Her mother joked that there wasn't even room for one more spoon in their house because it was so full. There were 16 individuals living together, so the noise and activity never ceased. There was no luxury, no peaceful place to sit, just continual moving and sharing everything. Celine was a baby in a world full of chaos, and she was one of over 20 mouths to feed. Like most people in their neighborhood, her family was impoverished, crowded, and loud. She later remarked that they didn't recognize they were having a hard time because everyone around them was living the same way. There wasn't even a bed for her to sleep in. Her parents put her in a dresser drawer lined with blankets when she got home from the hospital. It wasn't a strange choice. That was their only choice. There wasn't enough money for accessories or space for baby furniture. The average Canadian family made around $6,000 a year at the time, but the Deans had a lot less money and a lot more kids. She had to make hard choices and set restrictions on her early life. Space didn't open up as she became older. It just got worse. Celine had to share a small bed with a lot of sisters, often 3 to a mattress. There were so many people in the house that couches, floors, and even corridors became places to sleep. She later reported that the girls slept like sardines, all crowded together every night. This wasn't just a couple years of squeezing in. It went on until she was a teenager. While most Canadian households were getting smaller, hers felt like a crowded village. Her father was a butcher and worked long hours for very little money. Her mother stayed home and took care of the house and made outfits out of scraps and old clothes. It was a family that lived to survive, not to save money. But even when things were rough, there was always one thing in the air: music. He sung to her. Her mother played the violin, and her name came from a song. They named her Celine after a French song they adored, almost like a modest wish that their little girl might one day bring that song into the world. But even with all the love and singing at home, the world outside wasn't kind. People made fun of Celine all the time in school. She was thin, had huge teeth, and didn't look like the other kids. They dubbed her a vampire. It wasn't just once in a while that they teased him, it was every day. Later, Celine remarked that the bullying left scars that she would never forget. She remembered how scared she was as she walked into class, knowing precisely what was about to happen. Pictures of her as a child reveal a shy girl who seemed like she wasn't sure of herself and was trying to hide. Things didn't get any easier when she started singing in public as a teen. Local tabloids made fun of her features and labeled her Canine Dion because of her teeth. She was just a kid, but grown-up reporters made fun of her too. People were paying attention to her voice, but the news was really about how she looked. When she turned 18, she had had enough. She discreetly walked away, got dental surgery, caps and braces, and came back ready to be seen for what she could achieve, not how she looked. She had never been happy at school. She once commented, "I hated school very much. It wasn't simply the bullying. She didn't think she fit in there. She learned the most at home. Her brothers and sisters taught her. Her classroom was the dinner table. People around her taught her how to sing, act, and stay alive, not books or chalkboards." The Dion family didn't give up even when they didn't have much money. They really did create a band. It included all 14 kids. They named themselves Dion's Family and played at places all around Quebec. When Celine was just 5 years old, she sang at her parents' piano bar. People didn't regard her like a new thing. She was in the act. She had already composed her first song and made a demo by the time she was 12. In 1973, she sang in front of a crowd for the first time during her brother Michel's wedding. It wasn't simply for fun. It was about staying alive. The shows made money for the business. And more significantly, they provided Celine a place to perform. The schoolyard made her feel little, while the basement of her family's house made her feel safe. She didn't hang out with buddies after school. She would run home and immerse into music with her brothers and sisters. Their basement became a safe place for her. It was full of music, laughter, and instruments, and it was loud. Celine found her voice in that basement. It was where she converted her grief into strength. She fought back against the world that made fun of her with every song she sung. A little girl and her family went to a neighborhood studio in June 1980. They had just enough money to make a demo. It wasn't anything special, it was simply a few simple tunes that she and her mother and siblings wrote together. Most youngsters that age were still learning how to ride a bike. But this girl was thinking about something else. Music. That day, she sang into a studio mic while her family was there, not understanding that she was taking the first step on a path that would lead to hundreds of millions of people. What began in a kitchen would one day be heard in stadiums all around the world. Therese, her mother, didn't just believe in her voice. She put everything on the line for it. She took out a loan on their house to send that demo to a man named René Angelo. She picked him because he was in charge of Jeanette Reno, Quebec's most famous singer, and Celine looked up to her. But the family could only afford to send one tape. If it slipped into the wrong hands or was thrown away, it would be the end. There were 14 kids in the Dion family. Their dad was a baker. This wasn't just a risk. That was all they had. And somehow that cassette got through. René paid attention. He didn't just listen to a music. He heard something new. He claimed afterward that it was the greatest voice he had ever heard. People say he cried. Some others say he sat there in shock and stillness. What he did next astonished everyone. He put his own house up as collateral for a loan of more than $100,000 to pay for her career. A girl who was only 12 and has never been on stage before. People told him he was crazy, but he didn't care. He had faith. By 1983, she was already a big deal in Quebec. She had won Eurovision by 1988. She was just getting started. Their initial meeting wasn't set up like a huge audition. René didn't even have a genuine microphone when the Dion family got there. He gave her a pencil and told her to act like she was singing to a packed stadium. She didn't think twice. With a pencil in one hand, she sang Sinead Conrev like her. Life depended on it. René couldn't believe what she was hearing. He remarked later that she sung like there were 10,000 people in the room. In truth, there were only a few family members and a manager there, but that event changed her life. Celine put out 9 French-language albums between the ages of 13 and 18. Teenagers were mostly worried about school dances or tests. Celine was making hit after hit. She created history in France when she was 15 years old by becoming the first Canadian musician to get a gold record there. It was D'amour ou d'amitié. Celine Dion had a secret she couldn't tell anyone when she was only 18. She was very much in love with her boss, René Angelo, who was 44 at the time. People would have talked about the age difference alone, but it went far beyond. She kept a picture of him beneath her pillow and looked at it every night while she and her mother slept in the same room. Her infatuation made her feel ill to her stomach. She thought about him all the time. She couldn't get to sleep. She knew it couldn't be done. René has been through 2 divorces before. He was old enough to be her dad. But she couldn't stop herself. The more wrong it felt, the stronger the feelings were. Her mother was the first in her family to find out. Celine's biggest fan had always been Therese Dion. She helped her get started in her career. She had faith in her voice. But when she found out that her teenage daughter had fallen in love with a man who was about 30 years older than her, she was appalled. René was more than just older. He has been a part of Celine's life since she was 12. Therese thought it was unsafe, even foolish. She confronted Celine, possibly hoping that the crush would go away. Celine didn't back down, though. She kept her position. She said to her mom, "We live in a free country. I can love whoever I want." She wasn't only fighting for her feelings. She was fighting to be free. And she wasn't going to allow anyone get in her way. When she turned 19 a year later, everything changed. What had previously been a secret crush turned into a real romance. Their first official date was calm and didn't get much media attention. For a long time, and Renee kept their relationship a secret. Only close friends and family knew. They were careful. They knew that people would judge them. But they really loved each other and were ready to wait. They were hiding in plain sight. He was still her boss and her mentor, but their relationship became stronger behind the scenes. She made a surprising choice at the height of her early fame. For 18 months, she wasn't in the public eye. There was no scandal. It was a scheme. She kept her teeth, changed her hair, and learned how to speak English fluently. She no longer wanted to be a child star. She wanted to be known all over the world. The sabbatical started in late 1986, and when she came back, she was a different person. The world noted that her voice hadn't altered, but her image had. That night changed her life. Celine Dion won the Eurovision Song Contest on April 30, 1988, in front of more than 600 million people. She was just 20. The show was amazing. She sung for Switzerland, not Canada, but it didn't matter. Switzerland won by just 1 point, 137 to 136, when all the ballots were counted. That close win made her renowned all throughout Europe in a single night. The song Ne partez pas sans moi was the last French song to win the contest. Celine, who used to be a quiet teenager from Quebec, was now a big star in the whole world. She made her best jump yet in 1990. Unison, her first album in English, altered everything. It sold more than 1.2 million copies in the US and went platinum. It was certified 7 times platinum in Canada. For a French-speaking singer, it was nearly unheard of for a successful song like Where Does My Heart Beat Now to reach number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. But Celine made it look easy. The record won her 2 Juno Awards, Record of the Year and Female Vocalist of the Year. She was no longer merely a success in Canada. She was quickly becoming famous in the world of pop music. That same year, she made her first big appearance on American TV on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Leno looked right into the camera and said that after hearing her perform live, she will have an amazing career. That moment was important. No one had ever said anything like that about a new French-Canadian singer before. But it turned out to be just right. That one TV moment opened doors for her all throughout the US. The Wall Street Journal, which usually covers business and finance, hailed her a voice that comes along once in a generation 2 years later. Even her team was shocked by that type of praise from such a serious source. People weren't comparing her to pop stars anymore. People were putting her in the same group as legends. Her voice had become her trademark, powerful and distinctive. Finally, reviewers were giving her the praise she deserved. Then, on the night of March 30, 1992, her 24th birthday, Celine went up on stage at the Academy Awards to sing Beauty and the Beast with Peabo Bryson. The song had just won a Grammy and an Oscar. She sang it live in front of some of the biggest stars in Hollywood, and her performance stopped the program. That night, she also put out her next English-language CD. The word spread right away. She was back on The Tonight Show in less than a day. And by that time, everyone agreed. What Jay Leno said would happen has happened. Celine Dion shocked the whole country when she got married live on national television on December 17, 1994. Millions of people in Canada saw her walk down the aisle at the Notre Dame Basilica in Montreal. She was 26 years old and wore a silk gown with a 20-foot train and a tiara that weighed 7 pounds. More than 10,000 fresh flowers decked the chapel, which was full of more than 500 visitors. It was much more dramatic because it was the first time Celine and René Angelo told the world about their romance. He was 26 years older than her, and until then, no one knew about their relationship. But things weren't easy when they got married. Her music career kept getting better and better, but she had to deal with years of misery trying to have kids. She began fertility treatments in her early 30s, and they lasted for about 10 years. In 1999, things became even worse when Renee was told she had throat cancer. They froze his sperm before starting treatment, but doctors soon realized that he didn't have enough of it. It was practically impossible to get pregnant naturally. They had at least 7 rounds of IVF. Each one hurt them physically and mentally. They also lost a baby. Celine was one of the most famous singers in the world, but she didn't talk about these difficult things. It felt like a silent miracle when she finally gave birth. In May 2000, she came to New York to have 2 surgeries at a leading fertility facility. The operations were only 4 days apart. Her team told her that she needed at least 10 days of relaxation after that. She put her career on hold to focus on becoming a mother. There was a lot of pressure on her, not just from the media but also from her own hopes. But she kept going. Their son was born in Florida on January 25, 2001. René Charles was the name they gave him. He was 6 pounds and 8 ounces and came 3 weeks early. Celine was 33 years old. The whole world was happy for her. The moment felt beautiful after years of problems and misery. For 3 whole years, she stayed out of the public eye to focus on her new family. It wasn't merely a happy conclusion. It showed what optimism and patience can do. But that wasn't the end of the story. Celine said something in an interview in 2001 that not many people expected. René Charles was conceived through IVF, and another embryo was made at the same time. That embryo is still frozen. She stated she was quite attached to it and couldn't stand the thought of not using it. For almost 9 years, that embryo sat frozen. Then, in 2010, it helped her give birth to her twin boys. The same science that made her a mother provided her the chance to have more children. Celine was already one of the biggest music singers in the world even before all of this. She came out with Falling Into You in 1996. It was the album that altered everything. It sold more than 32 million copies all over the world. It sold about 12 million copies in the US. The UK added 2.1 million more. It wasn't only a hit. In 1997, it won the Grammy for Album of the Year. It beat out Beck and the Beatles' albums. Sales in France, Germany, Canada, and Australia all went above 1 million. People still appreciate songs like Because You Loved Me and It's All Coming Back to Me Now, even after 25 years. Each of those songs sold millions of copies on its own. Then there was a song called No One Could Escape. Released in 1997 for the movie Titanic, My Heart Will Go On was her biggest hit. It had sold 18 million physical copies by 1998. It was the best-selling book in more than 20 countries. It stayed at the top of the Eurochart Hot 100 in Europe for 17 weeks. Germany, France, and the UK together made more than 4.6 million copies. At the time, it was a record for radio play in the US, with 117 million listeners in 1 month. And even now, people listen to it hundreds of millions of times a year. A whole new generation is still finding it. There was more to this triumph than simply one song or album. Celine was the first lady to have 2 albums sell more than 30 million copies. Falling Into You got 32 million. Let's Talk About Love came out in 1997 and sold 31 million copies. That hasn't been done by any other female artist. These songs didn't just reach the charts once. For months, they lingered on charts all around the world. Songs like My Heart Will Go On helped them reach heights they never thought possible. She influenced the future of Las Vegas in 2003. They erected a $95 million arena specifically for her at Caesar's Palace. It was called the Coliseum and could hold 4,300 people. Before that, people thought of Vegas as the last place for stars who were losing their shine. But Celine showed that wasn't the case. She sold more than 3 million tickets in less than 5 years. And made more than $385 million. Other big stars, like Elton John, Britney Spears, and Lady Gaga followed her lead once she had that success. What she started set the model for modern Vegas residencies. Renee Angelil and Celine Dion's love story was one of a kind. But behind the fame, lights, and music, they were fighting a private battle that lasted for 17 years and was very difficult. In April 1998, doctors first told Renee that she had throat cancer. He fought through surgery and treatment and achieved a recovery that doctors considered a miracle. But the cancer came back. Another tumor showed up in December 2013. It was taken away, but the damage had already been done. Renee was done eating. He had to be fed through a tube. Often took care of him herself, between rehearsals and performances. Renee still worked on her career, though. He helped make her Las Vegas concerts and international tours even when he couldn't talk. Celine dropped everything every time his cancer came back. In August 2014, she called off her gigs in Las Vegas and a scheduled tour of Asia. These were big decisions. They cost millions, yet she never thought twice. She stated she wanted to do everything she could to assist her spouse get better. In early 2000, when she was only 32 and one of the best-selling musicians in the world, she shocked everyone by leaving the spotlight. She took a 2-year vacation, not only to help Renee get better, but also to start their family. It was an unusual thing to do in the music business, and it came from the heart. That choice was a good one. Celine had twins when she was 42 years old in October 2010. They went by the names Nelson and Eddie. But getting there wasn't easy. She had 6 cycles of IVF. She lost 1 baby. The embryos that made the twins were kept for years. Each baby weighed a little more than 5 pounds. One was named after Nelson Mandela and the other after Celine's longtime producer, Eddie Marnay. It seemed like a miracle. Renee's condition got worse, yet he and Celine stayed together. They helped each other with her residency in Las Vegas. Renee died in January 2016 at the age of 73. In the last few months, she started feeding him herself. He was no longer her boss, yet he was still the most important part of her work. She kept her vow and stayed with him till the end. In 2024, the documentary I Am Celine Dion showed viewers a part of her life they had never seen before. In one scary occasion, cameras caught her having a seizure while she was recording. Her body became tense. She cried out in pain. She couldn't move or talk for almost 8 minutes. Her doctors had to act quickly, giving her 2 doses of emergency nasal spray while trying to keep her awake. The director wanted to stop filming, but Celine said they had to keep going. She wanted others to know what it's actually like to have her sickness. People were stunned by Celine's diagnosis. She had SPS, or stiff person syndrome. It affects only 1 or 2 people out of a million. The disease makes muscles spasm, which might happen when you hear, touch, or even feel something. It can bend the body, hurt the spine, and make it impossible to walk. There is no way to become better. Benzodiazepines and botulinum toxin injections are 2 common treatments. Celine had been having strange symptoms for years before she got the diagnosis. It wasn't until the pandemic gave her a chance to stop and think about her health that doctors uncovered it. Before that, she had kept her condition a secret from everyone. She kept performing even when she was in pain and her voice wouldn't cooperate. In 1 year, she did as many as 70 shows. She was seeing doctors, trying out different treatments, and keeping up appearances behind the scenes. She almost broke down when she pretended everything was all right, but she didn't want to let her supporters down. Doctors didn't confirm her ailment until August 2022. She informed her admirers the truth in December. Finally, the weight of keeping it a secret was gone. Her boys are now part of the team that takes care of her. Celine has taught Nelson and Eddie, who are just 14, how to tell when anything is wrong. They know how to get her to lie on her side. They know how to push the panic buttons in the house. They know when to ask for aid. They practice every night. They even check on her if she's taking too long to get ready for bed. It's not a job that any youngster should do, but they do it with love. Celine still feels Renee even though she is gone. She remarked in 2021 that she regularly feels his presence. She talks to him when things get tough. During the worst times of her illness, she feels him with her. He was her husband, her boss, and her best friend. That bond has always been there for her. People all throughout the world have seen how strong Celine is. She got the Legion of Accolade, France's highest civilian accolade, on May 22, 2008. At the Élysée Palace, President Nicolas Sarkozy delivered it to her. It is very rare for foreigners to get it. She had already sold more than 12 million copies of her French-language album, Deux, by then. This made her the best-selling French-language singer of all time. In 2023, Rolling Stone said she was the 10th best Canadian artist of all time. She was just behind greats like Joni Mitchell and Neil Young. No other Canadian female pop singer or group did better. It took decades for her to get the acclaim she deserved, showing that her influence has survived through all the changes and trends in the business. René Charles, her oldest son, is creating a name for himself. He had done well in two quite different worlds by the time he was 24. He put out a hip-hop EP in 2021. In July 2025, he startled the poker world by making it very far in the World Series of Poker main event. He reached it to day 5 with 2.8 million chips out of more than 9,700 players. He made roughly $70,000 and showed that gambling runs in the family. René, his father, had also been a serious player. René Charles is now carrying on that history by playing music and cards at the same time.